Through the Elephant's Door by Helene de Blois and France Cormier. It was raining that morning, so I said to Emile, "Hey, should we go to the museum?" Emile would have loved to be able to go in through the grown-ups entrance, or even the children's entrance, because, of course, there was one. He dreamed of sneaking in, just like a mouse, unseen and unnoticed. But when your waist is as big as a truck and your legs are like tree trunks, you don't have much choice. You go into the museum through the huge, the colossal, the monumental door for deliveries. "Not so fast, sweetie pie," cried the guard, seeing us come in. "You know the rules." I scrambled to answer, "Of course, sir, we mustn't break anything." The guard looked unimpressed. "And what else?" Cloakroom tickets." The guard furrowed his brow and flared his nostrils. He said, "We don't shout and we don't run. We don't play hide and seek, nor do we play zombie tag, and especially we do not touch anything, understood?" Emile and I nodded a polite of course, and arm in trunk we walked into the main gallery, paintings. The walls of the gallery looked like a party. Each canvas overflowed with shapes and colors. Here, red squares exploded with bursts of yellow. Over there, green triangles flanked pink ones. Further along was a bouquet of diamonds covered in mauve, orange, and fuchsia. It was a real carnival. But we remembered the rules. We did not scream, or run, or dance with the salsa. We stayed calm. We strolled about quietly. Me with my hands in my pockets, Emile with his ears flapping, both of our hearts soaring like butterflies. And then we saw it. It was a funny kind of painting, all blue and very wide. You might have said it was a piece of sky hanging at eye level, or it could have been the sea, or a small glimpse of paradise. The little plaque read, "Blue rectangle on blue background." Intrigued, we went in closer. Where did the blue background start? Where did the rectangle finish? We squinted our eyes, and then we opened them as wide as they would go, but we still couldn't see the shape. We inched closer. There we were, a few centimeters from the canvas, looking for the hidden rectangle in the background of the picture. But when a voice made us jump, "Back up!" It was the guard. Nuts! He must have been following us. "That painting is worth a fortune," he explained with a frown. "It's a masterpiece, unique, one of a kind, so you can look at it, but from a safe distance." Addressing Emile, he added, "Especially you with those windmill ears." My friend turned as red as a tomato as he tucked his ears behind his head. Emile doesn't like to talk about his ears, especially if they are being compared to windmills. It's true, his ears are big. They're huge, massive, mega, ginormous. And when he's too warm, he shakes them to cool off. They're like fans, not windmills. That's what I should have said to the guard, but he had already turned and gone. I stretched my hand out to my friend. "Come on, Emile," and we moved into a room with a big totem pole. Carved from one giant tree, a totem rose in the middle of the room. It was so tall, so imposing, that even Emile seemed small in comparison. But the most intriguing part of it was the animals. On top sat a sculpted black crow with multicolored wings. The crow was perched on a white wolf, which was perched on a flying sturgeon, which was balancing on an acrobatic beaver standing on the shoulders of a bear. Emile and I loved that the crew and all her animal friends. But the bear Such strength, such courage. She was supporting those other animals all by herself. Emile, a little shy, moved toward her. Oh. He stretched his trunk and started sniffing. Then gently, with immense tenderness, he hugged her like an old friend. I started to come closer. I wanted to cuddle with the bear too, but I suddenly changed my mind. No touching! The guard was back. Don't you know how to read? It's written there, and there. No touching. Emile loosened his grip and tucked his trunk under his tummy as far from sight as possible. But he didn't blush, not this time. Instead, he lowered his eyes and fixed them on the tile floor. But the guard was undaunted. He looked Emile over from top to bottom, then muttered, "If this fella sneezed, oof! With a trunk like that, we'd be here for months cleaning up." This guard was nuts. A trunk like Emile's, full of snot? An elephant's trunk is more like a mighty arm capable of uprooting a tree, sometimes like a delicate hand that can carry a paintbrush, or like a fountain shooting water toward the sky. Obviously, there's more to that trunk than being a nose for sneezing. This time, the guard was going to hear what I had to say. But he had already walked away from us, grumbling. I tapped my friend's shoulder. "Don't worry about it, Emile. Come on." And we moved into the ceramics room. We had only just walked in when we heard a cry behind us. "No!" The guard's arms were in the air, and he was waving them about. But... He looked panicky. "You can't do this. Tell me I am dreaming. Who let you in here?" It's true that the room was full of precious and fragile objects. Vases, plates, miniature figurines. But so what? We weren't gorillas. We knew how to be careful. "Don't worry, sir," I reassured him. "We will be super careful, won't we, Emile?" The guard pulled himself together and declared, hands on his hips, "You, my little friend, are fine. It's him." He pointed a furious finger toward my friend. "Him, with the behind." Emile flinched. I stopped breathing. "That's as big as a mountain." My friend turned as pale as a sheet. "And me? Nuts! I didn't say a word. And what could anybody say to such an insult? Comparing his butt to a mountain? If you were going to exaggerate, why not use the moon?" I clenched my fists. I was going to stand up for Emile, I swear. But I had barely opened my mouth when the guard got up on his high horse again. "Listen, you two. The smallest scratch on the tiniest plate and it's over. I'll throw you out so fast, and good riddance. You will never set foot in this museum again. Do you hear me? Never." Then he turned and left us there, in the middle of the ceramics. The big guy let out a long sigh. I cleared my throat. "Are you okay, Emile?" A tear rolled down his cheek. No, he was not okay. That's when a terrible thing happened. The lights went out, all at once. We were plunged into total darkness. "Nothing to worry about," I said. "I'm sure it's just a power outage. The lights will come on in a minute or two." Minutes passed. The lights did not come back on. It was darker than the bottom of a well. What should we do, Emile? Should we try to find the exit? At that moment, another and even more terrible thing happened. We heard something crash to the ground. Crash! And then, "Idiot! Someone will hear us!" "It's the painting's fault. It's too long." We stood as still as possible. Who were these two people whispering in the dark? And the first one said, "Watch where you put your feet." The other one replied, "Really great idea, cutting off the electricity." The first one said, "Dummy, how could we have stolen the picture without being seen, huh?" Suddenly, I was even more afraid. These men were burglars. The criminals must have heard us, because one of them shone his flashlight straight at Emile. "Do you see what I see?" "Don't worry about it," replied his associate, turning on his own flashlight. "He's stuffed." And he took a step toward my friend. "Funny-looking elephant all the same." And the other man came closer too. "Are you sure he's stuffed?" "Of course, he's all wrinkly." Luckily, Emile played a role of a stuffed animal really well. He didn't move a single hair. He barely breathed. But the burglars crept closer. Maybe it's a mammoth? Or a mastodon? I had broken into a cold sweat. Each time the burglars opened their mouths, they took one step closer. Either way, he's strong. Step. Is he ever strong? Another step. And his legs. Have you seen how thick his legs are? Nuts! They were still coming closer. Soon they'd be able to smell Emile's breath, his warm, alive breath. Even worse, they'd find me hiding just behind my friend, trembling like a leaf, absolutely terrified. They'd catch me and string me up like a sausage. Or maybe they'd attack me with their flashlights. Suddenly, Emile had had enough. He had had enough of pretending to be a museum statue. Enough of sucking in his stomach and holding still. Enough of trying to make himself smaller and smaller, as if he'd eventually disappear into the floor. He needed to take a deep breath, to stretch his spine, to take up some space. And then there was mayhem. Emile unfurled his huge ears. Just like that, without letting out a peep, he adjusted his giant head, raised his trunk up high, and let out a terrible roar. Terrified, the burglars screamed. They dropped their flashlights and started running. At least, I think they did. I heard racing footsteps and vases and plates crashing to the ground. Crash, smash, boom! Then a sound of a collision. Bang! And another bang! And then nothing. It was silence and darkness. The lights came back on and the guard appeared. There were broken ceramics everywhere. I knew it! They destroyed everything! But when he saw the two burglars lying on the floor, the guard was silent. It seemed that while trying to escape, the criminals had missed the exit and crashed straight into the wall. They were laying among shards of porcelain, the big blue painting sitting at their feet, as if a giant piece of sky had dropped on top of them. All the police had to do was come and gather them up. I threw my arms in the air. Emile is a hero! The guards stared at me, totally baffled. Exactly, I continued, because of his ears, or thanks to his ears, his big, beautiful elephant ears, and his mighty booming trunk. Bro, said Emile, just to show the guard what he was capable of. Slightly more quietly than I said. Also, maybe thanks to his big butt, but I'm sure I can't. I'm sure of that. It was pretty dark. The guard nodded his head slowly. He understood. So that's how our visit to the museum ended. The guard, acting all sweet and sugary, kindly walked us to the exit. He apologized 100 times and acknowledged that without my brave friend, who knew what would have happened to the famous blue rectangle on blue background. And guess what? The guard even made us promise to come back. You mustn't miss the mummy exhibit. It's fabulous. Ever since that day, Emile doesn't want to go in through the kids' door and the grown-up store. He doesn't even look at it. So what do you think? When your waist is as big as a truck and your legs are like tree trunks. You lift up your head, flop your ears, and, with a confident step, chose the immense, the colossal, the ginormous door for elephants.